Jake Morrison sat in his small apartment kitchen, looking at the pile of medical bills on the table. Each piece of paper made his stomach hurt more. The numbers were so big they did not seem real. 300,000 credits. That was more money than Jake would make in 20 years working at the warehouse. His sister Lucy lay sleeping in the next room. She was only 19 years old, but she looked much older now. The sickness was eating away at her body day by day. The doctors said she had maybe 1 month left to live. There was a treatment that could save her, but it cost 300,000 credits. Jake had tried everything. He asked for loans from banks, but they said no. He sold everything he owned, but it was not enough. Jake worked loading and unloading ships at the spaceport on Titan Station. The work was hard and the pay was low. Most workers like him lived paycheck to paycheck. There was no way to save that much money in time. Lucy would die unless Jake found another way. That was when he heard about the fights. The underground fighting circuit was something people whispered about in dark corners of the station. Alien crime bosses ran illegal tournaments where humans fought against monsters and machines. Rich aliens from across the galaxy came to watch and bet on the fights. The prize money was huge because the fights were so dangerous. Most humans who entered never came home. Jake had heard the stories. A man named Pete had entered the fights 2 years ago. He came back with enough money to buy his own ship and leave Titan Station forever. But for every Pete, there were 10 other men who never returned. Their families never knew what happened to them. Jake stared at the medical bills again. The treatment center had already called twice this week. They wanted their money up front before they would help Lucy. Jake had begged them to wait, but they said no. There were other sick people who could pay. The kitchen door opened and Lucy walked in. She moved slowly, holding onto the wall for support. Her once bright blonde hair was now thin and dull. Her blue eyes, which used to sparkle with life, looked tired and sad. "Jake, you look worried," she said, sitting down across from him. "Are those the bills again?" Jake quickly gathered up the papers and put them away. "Do not worry about that. I am handling it." Lucy was not fooled. She had always been smart, even as a kid. "Jake, I know we do not have the money. I have been thinking, maybe we should just accept what is happening. I do not want you to do something dangerous because of me." "Do not talk like that," Jake said firmly. "You are going to get better. I will find a way." Lucy reached across the table and took his hand. Her skin felt cold and thin. "Promise me you will not do anything stupid. I would rather die than have something happen to you." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "I promise I will be careful. But I'm not giving up on you. Never." After Lucy went back to bed, Jake sat alone in the dark kitchen. He thought about their parents who had died in a mining accident when Lucy was just 12. Jake had raised her by himself. He had made sure she stayed in school and had a good life. He could not let her die now. The next morning, Jake went to work as usual. But during his lunch break, he took a different route through the station. He walked to the lower levels where the air was thick and the lights were dim. This was where the criminals and outcasts lived. This was where he would find the fight organizers. The Red Nova bar was exactly what Jake expected. It was dark and smoky, filled with dangerous-looking aliens and humans. Jake had never been in a place like this before, but he tried to look like he belonged. He sat at the bar and ordered a drink. "You look lost, human," said a voice behind him. Jake turned around and saw a large reptilian alien with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The creature wore expensive clothes and gold jewelry. "I am Vex. I run certain business operations in this sector." Jake knew this was his chance. "I heard you organize fighting tournaments. I want to enter." Vex laughed, a sound like broken glass. "Another desperate human. Let me guess. You owe money to the wrong people, or maybe someone you love is sick." Jake did not answer, but his face gave him away. "I thought so," Vex continued. "You humans are all the same. You think you can be heroes and save the day? Most of you just end up as entertainment for my customers. What do I need to do?" Jake asked. Vex studied him carefully. "You are bigger than most humans who come to me. You have scars on your hands from hard work. Maybe you will last longer than the others. The tournament has 5 fights. Each one is harder than the last. Win all 5 and you earn 500,000 credits. Enough to solve whatever problem brought you here. Jake's heart jumped. 500,000 credits was more than enough to save Lucy and give them a new start somewhere else. But, Vex continued, if you lose any fight, you die. No second chances, no mercy. The crowd wants blood, and they will get it. When is the next tournament? Jake asked. 3 days from now. That gives you time to change your mind and run away. Like a smart human should. Jake stood up from his chair. I will be there. What do I need to bring? Vex smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. Just yourself. We provide the weapons and the opponents. You provide the entertainment. Jake left the bar and walked back to his apartment. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in months, he felt hope. It was a dangerous hope, but it was better than watching Lucy die. That night, Jake sat by Lucy's bed and watched her sleep. She looked so small and fragile under the thin blanket. He thought about their childhood together, how she used to laugh at his jokes and how proud she was when he got his job at the warehouse. She had never asked him for anything, even when she got sick. She just tried to stay strong for him. Jake made a decision. He would enter the tournament and he would win. He had to win. Lucy deserved to live a full life, to fall in love, to have children, to be happy. He would not let some rare disease take that away from her. The next 2 days passed. Slowly. Jake went to work and acted normal, but his mind was always on the fights. He had been in fights before, back in school, and a few times at work when tempers got hot. But he had never fought for his life against alien monsters. Jake spent his free time exercising and thinking about strategy. He was not the strongest or fastest human, but he was smart and he did not give up easily. Maybe that would be enough. On the morning of the tournament, Jake woke up early. Lucy was still sleeping, which was good. He did not want to lie to her about where he was going. He left a note saying he would be back late and had to work extra hours. Jake walked to the lower levels one more time. This time, he was not coming back until he had won 5 fights and earned enough money to save his sister, or he would not be coming back at all. The fighting arena was hidden behind a fake wall in an abandoned warehouse. Jake followed Vex's directions and found the secret entrance. Inside, the place was much bigger than he expected. There were hundreds of aliens sitting in seats around a large fighting pit. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of alien foods. Vex was waiting for him. I am surprised you came back, human. Most of your kind lose their nerve. I am here to win, Jake said simply. We will see about that. Your first opponent is already waiting? A HFY war beast. They are bred for fighting and killing. Very popular with the crowd. Jake looked down into the pit. At the far end, he could see a large creature pacing back and forth. It looked like a cross between a wolf and a lizard, with claws as long as kitchen knives and teeth like razors. Any advice? Jake asked. Vex laughed. Try not to die too quickly. The crowd likes a good show. Jake climbed down into the pit. The crowd above him began to cheer and make bets. He could hear them talking about how long he would last. Most thought he would be dead in less than 2 minutes. Jake picked up the plasma knife that was waiting for him. It was a simple weapon, but it would cut through almost anything. He looked up at the crowd one more time, then at the creature that wanted to kill him. He thought about Lucy sleeping in her bed at home. He thought about the medical bills on his kitchen table. He thought about the promise he had made to take care of his sister. The fight was about to begin. The arena fell silent as Jake faced the HFY war beast. The creature was even more terrifying up close. It stood 7 feet tall on its hind legs, with muscles rippling under its dark green scales. Its yellow eyes locked onto Jake with the cold intelligence of a born killer. Saliva dripped from its fangs, and Jake could see steam rising from where the drops hit the ground. The creature's saliva was acid that could burn through metal. Jake gripped the plasma knife tighter. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The crowd above was getting louder, placing their final bets on how quickly he would die. Jake tried to block out their voices and focus on the beast, The Thraxian moved first, charging across the pit with incredible speed. Jake dove to the side just as the creature's claws raked the air where his head had been. He rolled on the ground and came up running. The beast spun around and charged again. This time Jake was ready. He had watched how the creature moved during its first attack. It was fast and strong, but it attacked in straight lines. Jake waited until the last second, then stepped aside and slashed with his knife. The plasma blade cut across the beast's shoulder, drawing a line of green blood. The Thraxian roared in pain and anger. It had never been hurt by prey before. Jake did not wait for it to recover. He ran toward the wall of the pit, knowing the creature would follow. When he heard its heavy footsteps behind him, Jake jumped up and grabbed the edge of the wall. He pulled himself up just as the beast crashed into the stone below him. The crowd was confused. They had expected the human to die quickly, but instead he was making the famous war beast look clumsy. Jake dropped back down behind the stunned creature and struck again with his knife. This time he aimed for the tendons in its back legs. The Thraxian fell forward, unable to support its weight. Jake had learned this trick from watching nature documentaries as a kid. If you hurt the right muscles, even the biggest predator becomes helpless. The beast tried to turn around, but Jake was already moving. He climbed onto its back and drove the plasma knife deep into its skull. The arena erupted in shocked silence. Then wild cheering. Jake stood over the dead beast, breathing heavily. His first fight was over, and he was still alive. Vex looked surprised as he announced Jake's victory. "Impressive, human," Vex said as Jake climbed out of the pit. "But that was the easy fight? Your next opponent will not be so simple?" Jake was given a small room to rest in before the second fight. His whole body ached, and he had several cuts from the beast's claws. A medical robot treated his wounds, but Jake knew it was not trying to heal him completely. They wanted him alive for the next fight. Nothing more. As Jake rested, he could hear the crowd talking about him. Word was spreading through the arena about the human who had outsmarted a Thraxian war beast. Some aliens were impressed, others were angry that their bets had failed. Jake did not care what they thought. He had won his first fight, and that was all that mattered. The second fight came 2 hours later. Jake's opponent was a Korthan berserker, a humanoid alien with gray skin and red eyes. The Korthan was about the same size as Jake, but it carried itself differently. Where the Thraxian had been a simple predator, the Korthan was a warrior who had trained for combat. "This one is different," Vex announced to the crowd. "Korthan berserkers can enter your mind and fill it with terror. Most species become paralyzed with fear and cannot move. Let us see how the human handles mind games." Jake entered the pit with a new weapon, a metal staff with energy blades on both ends. The Korthan warrior stood in the center, perfectly still and calm. Its red eyes stared directly into Jake's, and suddenly Jake felt a wave of fear wash over him. Images flooded his mind. He saw himself dying in horrible ways. He saw Lucy dying alone in their apartment. He saw his parents' faces, disappointed that he had failed to protect his sister. The fear was so strong that Jake's legs began to shake. But then Jake remembered something his father had told him long ago. "Fear is just a feeling, son. It cannot hurt you unless you let it." Jake took a deep breath and focused on why he was here. He was not fighting for glory or money. He was fighting for Lucy. The Korthan warrior looked confused. Its mental attack should have left Jake helpless, but the human was still moving. Jake charged forward with his staff, catching the alien off guard. The berserker was so surprised that a human could resist its mind control that it forgot to defend itself. Jake struck with the energy blade, cutting across the Korthan's chest. The alien warrior roared and fought back with its own weapons, two curved swords that moved like lightning. Jake had to use all his speed and reflexes to avoid being cut in half. The fight lasted longer than the first one. The Korthan was skilled and experienced, but Jake had something the alien did not expect. Jake fought with the desperation of a man who had everything to lose. Every time the berserker tried to enter his mind, Jake thought about Lucy and the fear disappeared. Finally, Jake found his opening. The Korthan warrior made a high attack with both swords, leaving its body unprotected. Jake drove his staff upward, and the energy blade pierced the alien's heart. The berserker fell backward, dead before it hit the ground. The crowd was louder. This time, they had never seen a human resist Korthan mind control before. Jake had not just won his second fight, he had done something that should have been impossible. 2 down, 3 to go, Vex said, but his voice sounded different now. Less mocking, more respectful. You are full of surprises, human. But your next opponents will not underestimate you. Jake's third fight was scheduled for the next day. He spent the night in a small cell, trying to sleep but mostly thinking about home. He wondered if Lucy was worried about him. He had never stayed away from home this long without telling her where he was going. When morning came, Jake felt better. His wounds had healed enough that he could move freely. The medical robot had given him drugs to help with the pain, but Jake tried not to think about what else might be in those drugs. He did not trust anything in this place. The third fight was different from the first 2. Instead of one large opponent, Jake faced a pack of 5 Sci-Fi hunters. These aliens looked like wolves that walked on 2 legs with sharp claws and fangs. They were smaller than the Thraxian, but they worked together as a team. Jake's weapon this time was a pulse rifle with limited ammunition. He had 30 shots, and there were 5 enemies. He would have to make every shot count. The Sci-Fi hunters spread out around the pit, trying to surround Jake. They moved with the coordination of a military unit. Jake realized that these creatures had been trained to fight together. They would attack from different directions at the same time, making it impossible for him to defend against all of them. Jake climbed onto a pile of rocks in the center of the pit. From there, he could see all 5 hunters and they could not surround him. The high ground also gave him a better angle for shooting. The first hunter attacked from the front, running straight at Jake's position. Jake shot it twice in the chest, and it fell. But while he was focused on the first attacker, 2 more hunters climbed up the rocks from behind. Jake spun around and shot the nearest one, but the third hunter reached him before he could fire again. Its claws raked across his back, tearing through his shirt and cutting his skin. Jake fell forward but managed to roll away before the creature could finish him. Now, Jake was back on the ground level with 4 hunters still alive. His back was bleeding and his rifle only had 25 shots left. The hunters had learned from their first attack. They stayed spread out and moved carefully, not giving Jake any easy targets. Jake used his military training from years ago. He had served in the Colonial Defense Force for 2 years before getting his job at the warehouse. The training had been basic, but it had taught him about squad tactics and how to fight multiple enemies. Jake moved toward the wall of the pit, keeping his back protected. When 2 hunters attacked from the left, he shot one and used his rifle, like a club, to hit the other. The second hunter stumbled, and Jake finished it with a close-range shot. 3 hunters remained, but they were more cautious now. They had seen 2 of their pack killed, and they knew the human was dangerous. Jake used this to his advantage. He fired shots near the hunters, not trying to hit them, but making them jump and move. This broke up their coordination. When one hunter moved too far from the others, Jake focused all his fire on it. The creature tried to dodge, but Jake predicted its movements and led his shots. The hunter fell with 3 bullet wounds. The last 2 hunters attacked together in a desperate charge. Jake had 8 shots left. He aimed carefully and fired 4 shots at each hunter. Both creatures fell just steps away from him. Jake stood in the center of the pit, surrounded by dead Sci-Fi hunters. His back was on fire with pain and he was exhausted. But he was alive, and he had won his 3rd fight. The crowd was going wild. They had never seen a human fight like this before. Jake was not just lucky anymore. He was proving that humans could be warriors. 3 fights down, Vex announced. But tomorrow, the human faces our mechanical champion? Let us see how flesh and blood competes with steel and circuits. Jake looked up at the crime boss and nodded. He was halfway to saving Lucy's life. Nothing was going to stop him now. Jake woke up on the morning of his 4th fight with pain shooting through his back. The cuts from the Sci-Fi hunters had not healed properly, and every movement reminded him of how close he had come to dying. But he was alive, and that was what mattered. One more fight after today, and he would have enough money to save Lucy. The medical robot came to treat his wounds again. This time it worked more carefully, sealing the cuts with a special gel that would help them heal faster. Jake suspected that Vex wanted him in better condition for the upcoming fight. The crowd was getting more excited about the human fighter, and a wounded contestant would not put on as good a show. Today you face something different, Vex told Jake as he prepared for the fourth fight. Not a living creature, but a machine. A Goliath combat unit, 10 feet tall, armored with titanium plating, and equipped with energy weapons that can melt through solid rock. Jake had heard about these machines. They were used by wealthy aliens as bodyguards and soldiers. Each one cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Fighting one was supposed to be impossible for a single person. The machine has fought in this arena 12 times, Vex continued. It has never lost, never even been damaged. The crowd loves watching organic fighters get crushed by superior technology. Jake looked through the viewing window at the arena. The Goliath unit was already waiting in the center of the pit. It looked like a giant metal man with glowing red eyes and cannons mounted on its arms. The machine stood perfectly still, but Jake could see energy flickering around its weapons. "What weapons do I get?" Jake asked. Vex smiled his sharp-toothed grin. "The same plasma knife you used in your first fight. We want to keep things fair." Jake almost laughed. A small knife against a 10-foot war machine was not fair, but he had stopped expecting fairness from these people. He would have to find another way to win. When Jake entered the pit, the crowd was louder than ever. They were betting heavily on how quickly the machine would kill him. Most gave him less than 30 seconds. Jake ignored their voices and studied. His opponent, the Goliath unit, turned its head toward him with mechanical precision. Its sensors scanned Jake from head to toe, analyzing his threat level. The machine's computer probably decided that Jake was not dangerous at all. Combat initiated. The machine announced in a cold, electronic voice. Target acquired. Termination authorized. The Goliath raised its arm cannons and fired. Jake dove behind a pile of rocks as energy blasts exploded around him. The machine's weapons were incredibly powerful, turning stone into dust and melting. Metal barriers. Jake knew that even one direct hit would kill him instantly. Jake stayed hidden behind the rocks, thinking fast. He could not fight the machine directly, and he could not outrun its weapons. But every machine had weaknesses, and Jake had worked around heavy equipment his whole life. He knew that the bigger and more complex a machine was, the more things could go wrong with it. The Goliath began walking toward Jake's hiding spot, its heavy feet shaking the ground with each step. Jake waited until the machine was close, then ran in the opposite direction. The Goliath turned to follow him, but it moved slowly compared to the organic fighters Jake had faced before. Jake ran toward the wall of the pit where he had noticed something earlier. There were maintenance panels built into the stone, probably for repairing the arena between fights. If he was right, there might be electrical conduits behind those panels. Energy blasts followed Jake as he ran, missing him. By inches, the Goliath's aim was perfect, but Jake was unpredictable. He zigzagged and changed direction suddenly, making it hard for the machine to target him. Jake reached the wall and used his plasma knife to cut through one of the maintenance panels. Behind it, he found exactly what he had hoped for. Thick electrical cables that powered the arena's lights and systems. Jake cut through the cables with his knife, sending sparks flying everywhere. The lights in the arena flickered, and some of the crowd's viewing screens went dark. But the Goliath unit was not affected. It had its own power source and did not depend on the arena's electrical system. Jake had expected this. Cutting the main power was not his real plan. He grabbed several of the loose electrical cables and pulled them free from the wall. The cables were still live with electricity, crackling with dangerous energy. The Goliath unit approached Jake's position, raising its weapons for a final shot. Jake waited until the machine was directly in front of him, then threw the live cables at its feet. The electricity arced between the cables and the machine's metal body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Goliath unit began to shake and spark. Its targeting systems went haywire, and its weapons fired randomly into the air. The machine's computer was being overloaded by the electrical feedback. Jake did not waste the opportunity. He ran toward the confused machine and climbed up its back, using the armor plating as handholds. The Goliath tried to shake him off, but its movements were jerky and uncontrolled. Jake found what he was looking for on the machine's head, a small access panel that maintenance workers used to perform repairs. Jake cut through the panel with his plasma knife and looked inside. There were circuit boards and wires. The machine's electronic brain, the Goliath unit, was starting to recover from the electrical attack. Its systems were coming back online, and soon it would be dangerous again. Jake had only seconds to act. Jake pushed his plasma knife deep into the machine's control circuits and twisted it around. Sparks flew everywhere, and the Goliath unit let out a sound like a dying animal. The machine took 2 more steps, then fell forward with a crash that shook the entire arena. Jake rolled away from the falling machine and landed hard on the ground. The Goliath unit lay motionless, its red eyes dark and lifeless. Jake had done the impossible. He had defeated a military-grade combat machine with nothing but a knife and his knowledge of electrical systems. The crowd sat in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this before. A human had outsmarted technology that was supposed to be perfect. Then the silence broke into wild cheering. Even the aliens who had lost money betting against Jake seemed impressed. "Unbelievable," Vex announced. "The human has destroyed our mechanical champion. 4 fights won, 1 remaining." Jake stood up slowly, every muscle in his body aching. He was exhausted and injured, but he was still alive. 1 more fight, and he would have enough money to save Lucy. He could almost see her face when he came home with the cure for her disease. "Your final opponent is special," Vex told Jake as he was taken to his rest area. "Not a monster or a machine, but something much more interesting. A fellow slave who fights for the same reason you do." Jake was confused. "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow, you will face our champion fighter. She has won more battles than any creature in this arena. Like you, she fights not for glory, but for someone she loves. It should be a very entertaining match." Jake spent the night thinking about Vex's words. He had assumed that all the other fighters were just animals or machines put in the arena for entertainment. The idea that there was another person like him fighting to save someone they cared about made him feel sick when morning came. Jake felt different than he had before his other fights. He was not just nervous about the danger, but worried about what kind of person he would have to fight. What if his opponent was just another desperate human trying to save a family member? Jake was taken to the pit for his final fight. The crowd was the largest he had ever seen, with aliens packed into every seat. Word had spread across the station about the human fighter who had defeated 4 impossible opponents. Everyone wanted to see his final battle, but when Jake looked across the pit at his opponent, he froze in shock. It was not a human at all, but something he had never seen before. The creature looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and silver hair that seemed to glow in the arena lights. She was smaller than Jake, probably no taller than Lucy, but she moved with the grace of a trained dancer. The strangest thing was her eyes. They were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that reminded Jake of his sister. But there was something else in those eyes. Sadness and pain that Jake recognized from looking in mirrors. Around the creature's neck was a metal collar, the same kind that human slaves wore in the outer colonies. Jake realized that this being was not here by choice, just like him. She was fighting for someone she loved, just like him. The alien fighter picked up her weapon, a curved sword that seemed to be made of some kind of crystal. She held it expertly, like someone who had been trained to fight since childhood. But when she looked at Jake, her expression was not angry or aggressive. She looked sorry. "I am Kira," she said in accented English. "I do not want to fight you, human, but I have no choice." Jake picked up his own weapon, a simple metal sword. "I understand. I have no choice either." The crowd began to cheer, eager for the fight to begin. But Jake and Kira stood still, looking at each other across the pit. Both knew that only one of them would walk away from this fight. Both knew that the other was not an enemy, but another victim of the same cruel system. I fight for my brother, Kira said quietly. He is young and sick. They will kill him if I lose. Jake's heart sank. This alien girl was in the same situation as him. She had someone she loved who would die if she did not win. I fight for my sister, Jake said. The crowd was screaming with anger as Jake and Kira stood together in the center of the pit. Aliens were throwing things at them and demanding their money back. They had come to see a fight to the death, not two slaves holding hands and refusing to kill each other. Vex was furious. His yellow eyes glowed with rage as he looked down at the two fighters who had ruined his tournament. You will fight each other, or you will both die slowly, he shouted over the noise of the crowd. I have spent too much money on this event to let you destroy it. Jake squeezed Kira's hand tighter. Whatever happens, we stick together, he said. Kira nodded. Together we are stronger than apart. This is something my people believe. Your people? Jake asked. What kind of aliens are you? Before Kira could answer, security guards began dropping into the pit. They were armed with energy weapons and stun batons. Vex had decided that if the fighters would not entertain his customers, they would become the entertainment themselves. Kill the human quickly, Vex ordered his guards. But bring me the girl alive. She is too valuable to waste. The first guard attacked Jake with a stun baton, but Kira moved faster than lightning. Her crystal sword cut through the guard's weapon and then through his arm. The alien screamed and fell backward, clutching his wound. Jake was amazed by how quickly Kira moved. She fought like someone who had been trained by the best warriors in the galaxy. Her movements were perfect, never wasting energy or making mistakes. This was not just a desperate slave fighting for survival. This was a master warrior. Two more guards attacked from different directions. Jake fought one while Kira handled the other. Jake's opponent was bigger and stronger, but Jake had learned from his previous fights. He used the guard's size against him, making the alien overbalance and fall. Then Jake grabbed the guard's energy weapon and shot him with it. Kira had already finished her opponent. She moved like a dancer, spinning around the guard's attacks and striking with deadly precision. Jake had never seen anyone fight so beautifully. More guards kept coming. Vex seemed to have an unlimited supply of hired muscle. But Jake and Kira fought back to back, protecting each other and working as a team. Jake's human unpredictability, combined with Kira's perfect technique, made them unstoppable. We cannot stay here, Kira said as she cut down another guard. There are too many of them. We need to escape. Where can we go? Jake asked. This is a space station. There is nowhere to run. There is always somewhere to run if you know how to look, Kira replied. Trust me. Jake did trust her, though he did not know why. There was something about Kira that made him feel like she could handle any situation. She seemed to know things that a simple slave should not know. Kira led Jake toward one of the arena walls. She examined the stone carefully, running her hands over the surface until she found what she was looking for. A small crack in the wall that looked like natural wear but was actually something else. Help me push here, Kira said, pressing against a specific spot on the wall. Jake added his strength to hers, and a section of the wall swung inward like a hidden door. How did you know about that? Jake asked as they squeezed through the opening. I've been here longer than you think, Kira said. I have had time to learn the station's secrets. They found themselves in a narrow maintenance tunnel that ran behind the arena. Jake could hear the guards shouting behind them, but the tunnel was too small for the larger aliens to follow quickly. As they crawled through the tunnel, Kira told Jake her story. She had been captured 6 months ago during what was supposed to be a peaceful mission. Her ship had been attacked by pirates who sold her to Vex. Since then, she had been forced to fight in the arena while Vex used threats against her brother. To keep her obedient, your brother is here too? Jake asked. He's being held in a different part of the station, Kira said. Vex keeps us separated so we cannot plan an escape together. But I have been watching and learning. I know where he is. They reached the end of the tunnel and emerged into a storage room filled with spare parts for the arena equipment. Kira moved to a computer terminal and began typing commands with expert skill. You know how to use their computers? Jake asked. Kira smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. I know how to use many things. My people are very advanced. We have technology that makes this station look primitive. Jake was starting to understand that Kira was not just any alien refugee. What exactly are your people called? We are the Velterans, Kira said as she worked at the computer. We come from the Andromeda sector. Our ships are faster than anything in this galaxy, and our warriors are trained from childhood to be perfect fighters. Jake's eyes widened. He had heard of the Velterans. They were legendary throughout known space as the greatest military force anyone had ever seen. Their ships could appear anywhere without warning, and their soldiers could defeat armies 10 times their size. Most people thought they were myths or stories told to scare pirates. If your people are so powerful, why have they not come to rescue you? Jake asked. Kira's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. Because they do not know where I am. The pirates who captured me used jamming technology to block my distress signal. My people think I died in the attack. But if you can send a message now. That is exactly what I am doing, Kira said. She finished typing and pressed the final key. I am sending a coded transmission to the Velteran fleet. They will receive it in a few hours. Jake felt a surge of hope. If Kira's people were really as powerful as the stories said, they could rescue both of them and punish Vex for his crimes. But then he remembered something important. What about my sister? Jake asked. Even if your people rescue us, Lucy will still die without the treatment money. Kira turned away from the computer and looked at Jake with her large, dark eyes. My people do not forget their debts. You helped me when you could have killed me. In the arena, you chose to be my ally instead of my enemy. The Velterans always repay such kindness. Before Jake could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and Jake could hear Vex's voice over the communication system. Attention all security teams. The prisoners have escaped the arena. They are somewhere in the maintenance sections. Find them and bring them to me alive. There will be a bonus for whoever captures them first. We need to keep moving, Kira said. Vex will send everything he has after us. They left the storage room and entered another tunnel system. This one was larger, allowing them to walk upright. Kira seemed to know exactly where she was going, leading Jake through a maze of passages that connected different parts of the station. How do you know your way around so well? Jake asked. I told you I have been here for 6 months, Kira replied. But that is not the only reason. Before I was captured, I was not just any Velteran. I was a scout and intelligence officer. Learning about enemy installations is what I was trained to do. Jake was beginning to realize that he had seriously underestimated his new ally. Kira was not just a skilled fighter. She was a military professional with training and knowledge. That could help them escape. They reached a junction where several tunnels met. Kira stopped and listened carefully to the sounds echoing through the passages. Jake could hear boots marching and voices calling to each other. Vex's security teams were getting closer. This way, Kira whispered, choosing a tunnel that led upward. We need to reach the communication center. If my message did not get through, I will need to send another one. As they climbed through the tunnel, Jake asked the question that had been bothering him since Kira mentioned her military background. If you are a trained soldier, why did you let yourself be captured? Why did you not escape before now? Kira was quiet for a moment. Because they have my brother, and I could not leave him. Also because of who I really am. If Vex knew my true identity, he would sell me for enough money to buy his own planet. What do you mean, your true identity? Kira stopped climbing and turned to look at Jake. In the dim light of the tunnel, her blue skin seemed to glow with its own inner light. I did not tell you my full name before. I am Kara Veltara of the Royal House. My father is Emperor Thane. Veltara, ruler of the Veltaran Empire. Jake's mouth fell open in shock. You are a princess? I am, Kira said simply. And when my people receive my message and realize that I am alive, they will come for me with the full power of the Imperial fleet. Vex and his criminal friends will wish they had never heard of the Veltaran Empire. Jake tried to process this information. He had gone from fighting for prize money to becoming allies with an alien princess whose rescue would probably start a war. His simple plan to save his sister had become something much bigger and more dangerous. Will your people help Lucy too? Jake asked. Kira smiled again, and this time there was something royal and commanding in her expression. Jake Morrison, you saved my life and my honor when you chose not to kill me in the arena. You treated me as an equal when I was dressed as a slave. My people have a saying, a debt of honor must be repaid with honor. Your sister will not only be healed, she will be given the best medical care in the galaxy. Before Jake could respond, they heard the sound of energy weapons firing behind them. Vex's guards had found their trail and were blasting through the tunnel walls to reach them faster. Jake and Kira reached the slave quarters after crawling through tunnels for what felt like hours. The lower levels of the station were darker and colder than the arena section. The air smelled bad, like too many people living in too small a space. Without proper cleaning, the slave quarters were a maze of small cells carved into the station's metal walls. Each cell held 2 or 3 people from different alien species. Some were humans like Jake, others were creatures he had never seen before. All of them looked thin and tired, with the hopeless expression of people who had given up on ever being free. How many prisoners are there? Jake whispered as they hid behind a support beam. Kira counted the cells quickly. At least 200. Maybe more in the sections we cannot see. 2 guards stood at the main entrance to the quarters. They looked bored and lazy, not expecting any trouble from the prisoners. Jake and Kira waited until the guards were looking away, then attacked from behind. The guards went down quickly and quietly. Jake took their weapons while Kira found the electronic keys that opened the cell doors. She began unlocking cells one by one, whispering to the prisoners inside. We are escaping, she told them. If you want to be free, come with us. If you want to fight back against the people who put you here, we will give you weapons. At first, the prisoners were afraid. They thought it was a trick or a test by their captors. But when they saw Jake and Kira standing together, armed and unafraid, hope began to return to their eyes. A large human man stepped out of the first cell. He had scars all over his arms and a broken nose that had healed wrong. I am Ben, he said. I have been here 2 years. They caught me smuggling medicine to the outer colonies. Can you fight? Jake asked. Ben smiled grimly. I can fight. And I know others here who can too. We have been waiting for a chance like this. Word spread quickly through the slave quarters. Prisoners began gathering around Jake and Kira, whispering excitedly about escape and freedom. Some were too weak or too scared to join the fight, but many others were ready to risk everything for a chance to get revenge on their captors. Kira found her brother in one of the last cells. He was younger than Jake had expected, maybe 16 years old, with the same blue skin and silver hair as his sister. But where Kira looked strong and determined, her brother looked sick and weak. Dex, Kira said, rushing to hug him. I told you I would find a way to save you. Kira, you should not have come, Dex said weakly. It is too dangerous. If they catch you again, Vex will kill you. No one is getting caught, Jake said firmly. We are all getting out of here. Jake organized the freed prisoners into groups. The strongest ones got weapons taken from the guards. The others would help by creating distractions and blocking passages to slow down Vex's security forces. Jake had learned about military tactics during his time in the Colonial Defense Force, and he used that knowledge now, but their escape plan hit a problem when the station's alarms began blaring even louder than before. Vex's voice came over the communication system, sounding angrier than Jake had ever heard him. Attention all security teams. The prisoners have freed the slaves in Section 7. This is a full rebellion. Use deadly force. Kill anyone who resists, but bring me the human and the blue-skinned female alive. He knows where we are, Kira said. Someone must have seen us. Jake looked around at the freed prisoners. Some of them looked scared, wondering if they had made a mistake by joining the escape. It does not matter, Jake told them. We knew this would be dangerous. But we are not slaves anymore. We are fighters and we are going to win. The first security team arrived 5 minutes later. 20 armed guards rushed into the slave quarters, expecting to find confused and helpless prisoners. Instead, they found an organized group of rebels. Ready for war, the battle was fierce but short. Jake's group had the advantage of knowing the area and having prepared defensive positions. They also had something the guards did not expect: desperation and anger built up over months or years of captivity. Ben proved to be an excellent fighter, using a metal pipe like a club to knock down 3 guards before they knew what hit them. Other prisoners fought with improvised weapons and raw fury. The guards retreated after losing half their number. That was just the first wave, Kira warned. Vex will send more, and they will be better prepared. Jake knew she was right. They had won the first fight, but they could not stay in the slave quarters. Vex would eventually send enough guards to overwhelm them. They needed to keep moving and find a way off the station. "Where is the nearest spaceship dock?" Jake asked. "Level 12, Ben answered. "But it is heavily guarded." "Vex keeps his personal ships there, then that is where we are going," Jake decided. "If we can steal one of his ships, we can escape and get help." Kira shook her head. "I sent a message to my people, but it will take time for them to arrive. We need to hold out until they get here." "How long?" Jake asked. "Maybe 6 hours, maybe more." Jake looked around at the freed prisoners. They were brave, but most of them were not soldiers. Holding off Vex's entire security force for 6 hours would be almost impossible. Then Jake remembered something Vex had said during their first meeting. The crime boss had mentioned that the station had a self-destruct system. If Vex was desperate enough, he might use it rather than let his prisoners escape and tell the authorities about his illegal operations. "We need to split up," Jake told the group. "Half of us will go to the communication center to make sure your message gets through," he said to Kira. "The other half will go to the main control room and stop Vex from destroying the station." "I should go to the communication center," Kira said. "My people need to hear my voice to confirm that I am really alive." "And I will go to the control room," Jake said. "Vex and I have unfinished business." Kira looked worried. "That is the most dangerous job. Vex will have all his best guards protecting the control room." "I know," Jake said. "But someone has to do it, and I have the most experience fighting his creatures." They divided the weapons. "And the people." Kira took 30 prisoners with her toward the communication center. Jake took the rest, including Ben and several other strong fighters, toward the main control room. The journey through the station was like a running battle. Vex's guards were everywhere, trying to stop the rebellion before it could spread to other parts of the station. Jake's group fought their way through corridor after corridor, losing people but never giving up. They reached the control room level to find it heavily defended. Vex had positioned his best guards here, along with automated defense weapons. The hallway leading to the control room was a killing zone designed to stop any attack. "How do we get through that?" Ben asked, looking at the weapons pointed in their direction. Jake studied the defenses carefully. Then he smiled. "The same way I'd beat the robot in the arena. We use their technology against them." Jake sent small groups of prisoners to attack from different directions, drawing the guards' attention away from the main hallway. While the defenders were busy shooting at the decoys, Jake crawled through maintenance ducts to get behind their positions. He emerged from a ventilation grate directly behind the automated weapons. Using his plasma knife, Jake cut through their control cables. The weapons powered down just as his main group launched their final attack. The guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Jake's people had been slaves for too long to be stopped now that they had tasted freedom. The defenders fell back and the rebels reached the control room door. Inside, they found Vex waiting for them. The reptilian crime boss was standing at the main control panel with his hand hovering over a red button. Jake knew immediately what it was: the self-destruct control. "Stop right there, human," Vex hissed. "One more step and I destroy this entire station. Everyone dies, including your precious alien princess and all the slaves you think you are saving." Jake raised his hands but kept walking forward slowly. "You do that and you die too." Is your pride really worth your life? My life is already over, Vex said bitterly. When the girls' people arrive, they will hunt me across the galaxy. Better to die here and take you all with me. Jake could see the madness in Vex's yellow eyes. The crime boss really was desperate enough to kill everyone rather than face defeat. Jake needed to distract him somehow. What about all the money you will lose? Jake asked. Your ships, your other businesses, your treasure? Are you really going to throw it all away? Vex hesitated for just a moment, thinking about his wealth. That was all the time Jake needed. He threw his plasma knife across the room, and it struck Vex's hand just as the alien pressed the button. The knife cut off 2 of Vex's fingers, and his hand jerked away from the control panel. The self-destruct sequence started, but it had been damaged by Vex's blood getting into the electronics. Instead of exploding immediately, the station's computer began counting down from 30 minutes. Jake tackled Vex before the crime boss could try to press the button again. They fought hand-to-hand, rolling across the floor of the control room. Vex was strong and had sharp claws, but Jake was younger and more desperate. He managed to knock Vex unconscious with a blow to the head. Can we stop the countdown? Ben asked, looking at the flashing red display. Jake examined the control panel. It was damaged and he did not understand the alien technology.